Check, check, check. 1, 2.
Hello, welcome to the Board of Education meeting for April 2nd, 2025. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Natalie, could you please reiterate the executive session motion?
Yes. We met in executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. Tonight, we are focused on 2025-2026 budget. This is our third meeting where we will review the budget line items. On April 22nd, the district will present the finalized budget proposal. If approved by the board, it will then be presented to voters on May 20th. Setting the budget is one of the board's most important responsibilities. It's not just about managing finances, it's making decisions that impact students, staff, the community, and naturally the budget process raises important questions such as whether the district expenses are growing quickly, whether there are risks to state and federal aid, and whether there are sufficient resources to maintain the district's robust program. We truly appreciate the community's continued engagement throughout this process and will continue to address these important questions throughout our discussions on the budget. I also just will touch briefly on the bond proposals. Last week, we held additional public comment. Thank you to everyone who came in and spoke about the bond proposals. And we've set propositions to provide the community with choices. We understand that the project costs are significant. As the Board of Education, it's our responsibility to keep you informed about the condition of our school facilities and propose projects that will ensure the facilities continue to meet the needs of all Pelham students. We encourage you to stay informed. I know there are current questions on the timing of borrowing, how debt service for capital projects impacts the overall financial picture for our school district, and if there are risks to state building aid. I've asked the district to provide us some detail on these important questions as well. Dr. Champ will review her upcoming informational meetings with respect to the bond, and we will continue to share information as it becomes available. So thank you for your continued engagement on these important topics for our schools. Thank you. Okay. That's my agenda.
Minutes next.
I'm sorry.
3.1, 3.2.
Okay. So I have a motion, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2025?
So
board meeting?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so that carries. 3.2, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 28th, 2025 work session, the bond scope discussion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next is 4.1, the superintendent's report.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Jackie. And a couple things tonight. We haven't gotten to do a report in a while, so I wanted to share a couple items. I just wanted to note Ms. Comerford is not with us tonight, but I wanted to just share, when she returns, we're going to need a new nameplate for her because it will be Dr. Comerford. She successfully defended her dissertation today, which is why she's not with us today. So kudos and congratulations to her. We're looking forward to having her back. It's super exciting. I know it's been a lot of work, and I know she's feeling a great feeling of success tonight. Wanted to also, I can't remember if I'd mentioned this, so I did want to share it. The board, I know, is aware of our strategic plan and the work that we've been doing under the theme of We Are Pelham this year. On March 20th, our school culture coaches led an amazing event at Hutchinson School. It was really the culmination of something that I've dreamed about doing since we were talking about building the school. and that was to have bring all of our fifth graders together from all 4 schools, ride a bus, which is an experience for our kids because they don't get to do that often, but then to be there and to there was a whole morning of activities led by the school culture coaches. We had a lot of administrators, the 5th grade teachers. Most exciting is we had our National Science Honor Society students from the high school and the student ambassadors from the middle school that got trained by Ms. Gruber ahead of time on the different activities and protocols, team building activities, based on responsive classroom practices that are used in all the schools across the elementary schools. So it was just a wonderful event. The kids all got a T-shirt designed by Anita Adolphus. And it was, a lot of the kids came away, especially the older kids, saying, gee, I wish I had this when I was in elementary school. So appreciative to the PEF for sponsoring that, all the folks that put effort into making that happen. And we're looking forward to debriefing on that and then planning for next year as we hope to expand that. Our ultimate goal will be to have a couple events like that each year for all students in grades 3, 4, and 5. That's what we would love to grow that to in future years. So it's a lot of work, a lot of time, but well worth it. So I just wanted to highlight that yet again. As Jackie mentioned, lots of different engagement events coming up. So I'm certainly making rounds to see some of the different PTAs. I was with Colonial last night. Thanks to Alex Wolf, who's working really pretty much nonstop to pull together a lot of information to help with informing the community about the bond. So you can expect a new website to launch, an updated bond website. We'll be launching, I believe, by the end of the week. We're also trying to put together information that includes on that the tax cap, the tax impact. And we've been, Jim has been working with our financial advisor to get that information, really make sure that we're as clear and on point as possible. And we're hoping to also get a tax calculator. It's going to be a little complicated because we have 4 different propositions and how those, the different variations of how those could pass impacts how one calculates taxes, but we're hoping to have that up in the next couple of weeks as well. So just we've reached out to tremendous, every community organization we can think of. So in addition, certainly to our board meetings, our PTA council meetings, PTA meetings, and I'm trying to schedule with everyone. Our bond steering committee has got a date on the calendar. They're going to be meeting very soon as well. And then we're meeting with groups, representatives from organizations like Recreation, who use our buildings all the time, Pelham Children's Center, the mayors and town supervisor. I will be recording, I think it will be recording, not airing, I'll be recording a podcast on the 803 podcast on April 28th. So beginning of May, you can expect that, for better or for worse. And, meeting senior citizens. We're going to be scheduling as well, so additional walkthroughs and info sessions, one at Siwanoy, one at the high school campus, and then a virtual one. So we can try to make those as accessible as possible, and those will be accompanied by more walkthroughs. And then again, still working on dates with civics and junior league and retired board, et cetera. So we often reach out to these same groups every year for the budget, and we appreciate the chance to meet with them and look forward to connecting with them between now and our May 20th vote. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. One more event to think about too, if you don't already have plans for this weekend. Sock and Buskin is staging Urinetown, and it is a phenomenal show, phenomenal troupe. Great date night. So Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, definitely get your tickets for that. Just one final piece, not in the school, student announcement, but just some information that I wanted to share, certainly with the board and the public, about a situation that came up. And the board is already aware of this. There was a post on Facebook today, various Facebook pages linked to an article that was published by the Pelham, our high school student newspaper. It was published back in February, pertaining to school safety monitors. Given that it's more than a month after the article came out, I can only guess why it's being posted today on Facebook. But in any case, I felt it important to provide some relevant facts about the situation. So I think a couple things to know. The article is an opinion piece, and it quotes anonymous safety monitors as sources. That's clear from the article. Prior to the piece's publication, I was asked a series of questions via email and provided those responses to the student reporter. Following publication, I also provided some clarification, which was information that was publicly available, but was not included in that opinion piece, and regarding certain assertions that in the piece really were inaccurate. So I provided that factual information. Important to know that decisions about approving or disapproving articles from the Pelham are not made at the district level. Any statement to the contrary is false. If that was the case, and if there was censorship going on, why would that opinion piece itself have been published? Would be a fair question to ask oneself. It's important to understand as well that it is well established legally that school newspapers and other publications such as yearbooks, literary magazines, etc., which are funded by the Board of Education in a school district, can and should be provided oversight by the school district through faculty advisors and administrators. This has been settled case law for years, and that practice has not changed. There is routine review of articles, opinions, and other content for accuracy, appropriateness of content, given that our audience is our students, to whom we have a responsibility as a public school. And that review is expected of our advisors and our administrators. If and when I myself am consulted on various articles, I do provide quotes, clarifications, corrections, whatever is appropriate. It's simply fact-checking and not censorship. While people are entitled to their own opinions, they are not entitled to their own facts. And as an institution, an educational institution, it is our role to teach our students journalistic integrity and to hold them to high levels of that. It's a learning process for students at times, we recognize that, but insisting on research, balance, fact is something that should be the standard for our student journalists. A couple more items just to pass on. The published article did include a number of inaccuracies, which prompted, as I said earlier, me to provide additional information to the reporter. Some of those corrections were added as comments or additions in the online version. Most notably, I did not receive a $30,000 raise last year. It was approximately a 2% raise, which we'll see in the budget books tonight, which was just over $5,000. Most monitors in the article claimed had not received raises. Most monitors have in fact received 2.1%, 3.6%, and 3% over the past 3 years. That is similar to or larger than those raises given to all other employees in the district over that time. Those raises were intentionally awarded in response to their conversations and advocacy with us following conversations with both Mr. Rickey and myself, where they raised concerns about salary. As part of an organization, we have the obligation to balance the needs of all employee groups within the budget and have worked over the past 3 years in particular to address those concerns for all monitors in the district, recognizing we have multiple groups of monitors and what impacts one impacts all. Additionally, as we first shared with the community, when we started hiring the third-party security monitors, Briger is the company that we contracted with. That is very common practice for schools. Other districts who do that include Bronxville, Byram Hills, Croton, Irvington, Eastchester, Rye, and Scarsdale. Adding security staffing through Briger was an effort on our part to continue to assure student safety by ensuring that we have sufficient staffing, especially when there are absences and unfilled positions, and also the need to cover after-school hours of activities, all of which have become more difficult staffing in the recent years due to shortages in staffing. These are shortages that impact all manner of job titles, especially those that happen to be in hourly wages, such as bus drivers, monitors, kitchen staff, security, anything of that nature tends to fall in that category, and we are not the only districts experiencing shortages there. The hourly rate that we pay Briger has been published. That's $32.95 per hour. However, that is not what those regards receive as actual pay, as that rate also includes overhead costs and for paying the company to cover training, insurance, et cetera. So despite our ongoing efforts, which we are still engaging in, to recruit and successfully fill several spots, and we have successfully filled several spots, we still have been able to fully staff up. And that was why we went with Briger initially. Our preference is always to have internal staff as those positions. I want to be very clear, again, that we value our safety monitors and recognize the important function they play in our schools. Many of them do have backgrounds in law enforcement, which is an incredible skill and provides a level of comfort and training that helps our schools to function properly, our students and families to feel safe. We will continue to do all we can to make sure that our students and staff are safe. and just hope that this provides some additional information as we move forward from this topic. Thank you. That's the end of my report for tonight. And with that, I think we're ready to move into the line-by-line budget review.
Actually, are we doing committee reports?
We can do whichever order you would like, Madam President. I did list it as attached to my, the line by line is attached. It may not have come out in the printout. I realize
Okay.
it went afterwards.
To do-
To do the line by line, I did add it to my report at 4.1.
Oh, okay. Let's do that first. Okay, so let's move to 4.1, the line-by-line budget review. Thank you. Sorry,
Jim, I'll let Mr.
printed the wrong one.
Again, good evening, Board. Tonight, we have just a couple of areas. We're going to finish up the rest of the budget book. Speaking first is John Condon, our Director of Facilities, to talk about operations and maintenance. In your budget books, we can start on page B5 through 7.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here with Jackie Vigil, who's going to help me out with anything I mess up, so I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming.
We're going to be going through, as Mr. Ricky said, starting on B5, and we'll work our way through. There's additional detail and backup that we can go into if you choose to. Want to go down into that level of detail, we certainly can. Starting off with the 160 code, custodial maintenance salaries. You see, as discussed, is a double bump. It represents last year and this year on that salary line for a settled contract. 162, summer help salaries. These are the summer help kids that we hire in the summer, for the lack of a better word, to help out in the district to get the buildings ready. They do fill-ins for guys out on vacation, but it's also necessary manpower to get the buildings turned over, and also apply services for the schools during the summer. As you well know, we have the buildings largely occupied in the summer with summer camps, summer school, and the like, and we also have to clean the whole buildings and get them turned over and ready for September. 165, substitute coverage salaries. That's for when people are out, covered fill-ins for those folks that are out, whether it's somebody out on an injury. We did have some open positions this summer, I beg your pardon, through the year, which we filled in. We're actually finally at full staff, which is a nice place to be. But that's what those funds are for. School-related / emergency. So emergency events would be quote-unquote snowstorms, schools are closed, or weekends, snowstorms, flooding issues that would take effect. But it's also events, be it, cheerleading or socks and buxing on Sundays and Saturdays, to call in additional staff. We had made changes a couple of years ago with staffing. We used to fully staff on a Saturday. We made a change and made that staff member on the Saturday, Monday through Friday, and we pushed Saturday to more of the overtime because that reduced overtime cost because we don't always have events, and we push all the events with the help of athletics to push them to the mornings and not stretch them out during the day. Bit of a learning curve in the beginning, but it's been helpful so that we don't have to fill in every single Monday, and it's more normal for that guy who has a regular position during the normal week. Grounds equipment, self-explanatory, 201, whether it's weed whackers or new lawnmowers or just tools to do replacement in the grounds department, all small equipment, a drill or line painting machine or something to that effect. Building equipment, again, small tools, whether it's floor stripping machines, auto scrubbers. We've in the last couple of years, we bought a bunch of auto scrubbers for the machines, walk-behind machines. They've done a tremendous job. They've helped us in the summer. expedite the cleaning where we don't really have the time, and they've really sped things up. It's been a little learning curve for the guys that have always done it with mop and bucket, but they're grasping the advantage of it and how much quicker and more efficiently and time-saving we can do it. Mechanical equipment, replacement of motors, equipment, pumps, water pumps, heating pumps, you name it. That falls in under that, general equipment. Then we go into the big ones, fuel, which is, I'm sure, everybody's problem at home as well. As we know, fuel prices are going up. We do burn gas and oil here. All our buildings are dual fuel, meaning that we burn number 2 oil or natural gas, except for Hutch, which is fully natural gas, and Glover Field, which has an oil burner only. There's no natural gas there. As a sidebar, we do have interruptible gas service at the high school. What that means is when it gets really cold out and there's not enough gas supply, Con Ed forces us to go to oil. We get a reduced rate because of that, and because it's such a big burner of fuel, the high school for its size, it's worth it for us to do it, not necessarily worth it to do it at the smaller schools. Light and power, again, going up. There's also, as noted on your right-hand side there on the explanation, there is contingency money on both of these funds. I've seen in former district where fuel prices have doubled in a year, and I think you have to be prepared for that, but I know the board is aware of that. Water service, as we know, we've gotten our water bills at home. Water keeps going up. That's for water for the buildings. Everything from cleaning to drinking water to heating systems to irrigation systems. Our buildings are used, more and more. Those costs are going to go up. Telephone and internet services also through us, regular phone service, plus desk services. All our equipment has phone lines. Every elevator has a phone line. Every alarm system has a phone line. It's kind of it's unbelievable actually what has it. And they have, you see reference if you go into the detail of a POTS line, and that actually is an acronym for plain old telephone line, believe it or not. But they are getting away from the copper and switching to everything to fiber, but we still do have copper lines. We're still on the same page. So now we're moving on to 440, professional consulting services. We do have roof inspections done. We have masonry inspection done. We will use engineering services from time to time. We will use architect services from time to time. We're currently obviously in a pre-bond phase, so that's represents the pre-bond work, the architect there, that bump there. Contracted services, we do have bids for all our contracted services, whether it's sewer cleaning, plumbing, dust mops, electricians, that sort of work. As needed, we will use that. They have 3-year bids that go out. After the 3rd year, we'll go out to them again to see if they'll hold their pricing. They can go up to CPI. When I first got here, we used to actually give them the choice of 1%, 2%, or CPI, and I said, let's just pull it out and ask if they want to rebid. Some of the older contractors have been around a while and asked what happened to the CPI adjustment. I'm like, well, if you want it, you can have it, but I'm not going to offer it to you. So it's been a little bit of a cost savings there because some of the newer contractors don't know to ask for that. Now they do, I guess, from listening to this. But anyway, building equipment and repair. This is access controls for that we put in for Simonoi. We put all hardwire access. There used to be all wireless access around the district. It was kind of about probably 15, 18 years ago, past its useful life. We've now hardwired the district. Expenditures such as that have gone out. Air conditioning, as you know, I think it was discussed about putting it into the elementary schools, so repair, that kind of work coming out of that. Ground service and repairs, we did have a big expenditure that we took out of this for the Colonial Playground, which I look outside my window and I watch kids on every single day, pretty much from morning till night, although they do go to school sometimes, but they're in there and they love that playground. It's a pretty awesome playground. So some of my, the expenditures came out of that, but outdoor cost, for Julian's playground, fencing, that sort of thing at the outdoor areas are used for that. Uniforms, CSA contract. In our contract, they get uniforms. We've supplied summer uniforms. We actually supply summer T-shirts for the summer kids to keep them so we know who they are. They're easier to spot. The blue wave coming to work in the morning, as we like to call them. They do get a shoe allowance. We are also purchasing uniforms now for our monitors in the building, our security monitors in the building, to make them more uniform, for lack of a better word. Training and education, although it doesn't reflect a large number here, we do send guys, and I say guys because we have all guys, with the exception of my assistant, to training. If they're interested in receiving training, whether it's outdoor skills or safety training, that costs, but a lot of these costs are built in through BOCES, so you wouldn't be necessarily reflective. We do have training, asbestos awareness, bloodborne pathogen, that sort of training, which is mandated every year that we go through, and that's picked up probably through human resources. I'd be lying if I could tell you exactly where that came from. The property lease represents some money and is not reflective of the actual costs, and I'm told as an accounting area that could be, the actual cost could be addressed by somebody else other than me.
We'll get to that a little later.
That'll fall under Jim. But I do pick up the internet
We're
costs.
keeping John away from accounting pronouncements.
Yeah, there you go. That's not my bailiwick. Custodial supplies, for the lack of the glamour, it's toilet paper, paper towels, soap, God bless. Soap, waxes, strippers, that sort of thing for the floors, you name it, it's in there. Ground supplies, this is, salt for the winter, sand, clay, topsoil, that sort of thing comes out of that. All for the athletic fields, we buy extra rubber every year. We also do. We have an outside company that does the maintenance on our turf fields once a year, but we do a monthly maintenance on all the turf fields, and which extends the life dramatically. As we all know, the main turf field is being replaced this summer. That is in the final phases of being approved, and the design, it's going to look pretty awesome. It'll be the same P. It'll be pretty much identical what will be there, but it'll be Pelham Pelicans in the end zones, which will look pretty cool on your flight in on LaGuardia. You'll know exactly where you are. Maintenance supplies, this is, maintenance repairs for anything, whether it's locks that get broken, door closers that need replacement, sticky tape for signs to hang a sign that mysteriously fall off the wall sometimes, repairs to bathroom partitions that mysteriously fall off the wall sometimes. Anything that happens in the schools, that's where that comes out of, repairs for that sort of thing. Vehicle and equipment fuel, pretty self-explanatory. Some of our fuel we get from actually the Manor. We purchase it from them. We get our diesel through them. They have diesel there for their fire trucks, so we purchase through them. And our gas we get from a gas station for our small equipment and for our vehicles. And here we go into, did I bounce everybody? I didn't bounce everybody in B7. All right, so now I got to move you to B.
We're going to go to D4 now.
D4, beg your pardon.
There's one page here.
There's a one-page which represents recreation. We have an intermunicipal agreement with the Recreation Department that goes back 25 years or something. That reflects the half price of one groundsperson, and half what it represents half the maintenance of the fields. We do maintenance on the fields. Ritchie Bell we use minimally for the school district, as you know, in an intermunicipal agreement with Recreation. They have first dibs on the fields after the schools are not using them. So Franklin, Ingalls, they schedule soccer, recreational soccer. They do travel soccer, travel lacrosse, inside lacrosse, rugby, that sort of thing. They use Prospect Hill exclusively. The district really doesn't use Prospect Hill except for recess for Prospect Hill. So those fields are primarily use them, but they also use our fields, softball, adult men's softball, that sort of thing, plus, the costs of running basketball and all those things that our kids enjoy in the schools that Recreation does a phenomenal job at. We have a great relationship with Recreation. We work very closely with them. We have meetings with them all the time. We're on, and that's where we are. As I said, I can go into any detail that you are interested in. I'm always available if something pops up that you want to talk about in particular. And that's the exciting world of facilities there, so.
And for the board's information, there's detailed backup to pages B5 through B7 in Appendix 3. It's kind of the build-up to all of those numbers.
Under
so
G1, G2, G3, all the way
Yeah.
through, you can get into the little details,
So,
which
just to provide greater detail.
I did last year, but I was,
Can I ask a question?
yes, ma'am.
It's B, B5 on mechanical equipment. Will we see some savings there if, given our infrastructure projects, proposed projects, with some of those expenses?
Oh, I certainly hope so, yeah, absolutely.
I had a similar question. The HVAC,
Yeah,
that HVAC line item?
Yeah, that's
As we
the
get the
one.
new HVAC,
So for this building,
For this
we would
building.
certainly hope to see improvement there.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've been failing. We've been putting a great deal of effort and money to keep them running to get us through to the summer. The machines are on order. We have a follow-up meeting on Friday with the vendor, like a touch base to get scheduling and all that done. It's all to be scheduled this summer. We're not, obviously, we know we're not moving, we can only do it in the summer because these units in these buildings, this building not only runs heating, cooling, and ventilation. That's the way it was designed. Hutch, we designed a little differently. We have a little more optionality at Hutch when that, it's already 5 years old, by the way, if you didn't notice. But
Things break.
that things, some of the maintenance costs you did see go up. I mean, we've added a lot of equipment, just elevators and equipment. We've added 2 elevators at Hutch, added an elevator at Prospect. Those are additional costs. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elevators and/or lifts here at the high school, middle school. Actually, I have 2 at Prospect as well. So they're all costs. They all have to be inspected every year. They have to be maintained. They have to be tested every year. Those are additional costs.
And as we kind of say, and John reminds us, think of having 3,000 visitors to your house every day with our facilities team. There's a lot of people, 3,000 plus people coming in and out of our facilities every day. And they turn that building, they maintain it and they turn it around so it's ready every day for our students every morning. So I think they do a tremendous job with their staff.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you and the team for everything they do every day. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very much appreciated.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Okay, our next item is page B1 to B2. It's the Board of Education's budget, district clerk, and central administration.
Yes, so thank you very much. Yeah, so B1, this is really kind of, these lines are a combination often of the Board of Ed as well as myself. So starting on B1 with 164. Actually, yep, that's the right one. So the first line there is for clerical support for the budget vote, so we're keeping that flat year to year. Next is contractual obligations. You see some larger numbers in actual expenditures that relate back to strategic planning. Since we're not doing that this year, that's why the budget is reduced back down to more actuals. Supplies and materials, just again, a small fluctuation there. And line 1010-490 is where board docs, our dashboard for managing all of the board and district-related documents is paid out of there through BOCES. Moving into the district clerk stipend, you see that there. Last year was a 3% increase. And those, for non-represented staff, those salaries are determined at the end of each school year, and that's any non-represented employee, such as not clerical that are non-represented, myself, monitors, and the cabinet. District meeting, that has to, these are really expenses related to the budget vote itself. So again, just kind of right-sizing some costs there based on what we're experiencing from year to year. So things like printing, voting machine rental, et cetera, and the board has started to see some of the approvals for items related to the upcoming May 20th vote. So that's B1. Moving to B2 is into the central administration, which begins, of course, there with my salary. You see last year's increase to this year's salary rate, which, again, a number I mentioned before, just over 5,654, which represents a 2% increase. Then clerical salaries, again, that's the clericals that support my office specifically, and HR. So it's 2 in my office, 1 in HR that are in the budget here with a 3% raise from last year into this year. Contractual expenses relate to a variety of different things. A lot of them really relate to consultants for professional development, title grant work. Those were the bulk of those. Also, professional Judy Wilson, professional coaching services, et cetera. So any contractual expenses related to my office come through that line, and then supplies and materials. That's really it. Pretty small number of budget codes that are direct to my office.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question on
Yep.
the part-time clerical support for the budget vote.
Yeah.
Just given the way voting, the actual administrative burden that is.
Yes, that's, and I think I know what you're
Do we have
saying.
enough? Yeah. Do you have
You know, that it's interesting. That's something that we've got to take a look at. I know that we have felt the increased need for clerical support to support the budget, especially since early voting.
Right.
And absentee out balloting has always been there, but the early voting made a significant impact on workload last year. I think part of our challenge is we can give extra hours to folks internally, which is where most of that goes. Depending on the volume, I mean, we probably could have used an additional person last year, but you don't know until
Till
you
it
know,
happens.
until it happens.
Yeah.
And then there's civil service procedures that would have to be followed as far as getting a seasonal employee, et cetera. So it is something that we've talked about. We did not budget for extra there, given that we were, trying to be really, streamlined in budgeting this year. But it is something that we may need to look at bringing in some extra help.
Okay.
We do usually get a higher turnout on bond years as well. So I would anticipate that if it's all on the budget vote day, that's a much easier load to manage. It's really the early voting that's added significantly.
Right.
So, fair question. I don't, we're going to have to give it another year, I think.
Okay.
But potentially use some contingency funds if needed to help offset that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next on the list is Human Resources and Personnel, page B4.
Thank you to the board for the opportunity to present the Human Resources Personnel Budget. As Mr. Ricky said, it's tab B, General Support. We'll specifically be focusing on page B4. It will cover 6 budget code lines under the Human Resources Personnel heading. So the first code you see is 1430-150. That is my salary for next year, which includes anything we know by contract. Please note that salary increases are not reflected here because that's a separate Board of Education action later this spring, and that is at your discretion. But you will see an increase there based on just contractual items. In line 1430-158, That is this is really a placeholder for potential salary increases for employees that are not covered under a collective bargaining unit. The actual amount becomes, again, another Board of Ed action item later in the spring, and if it is approved, then these items are actually transferred out of this code and into the correct code. So it's really just a holding place for you for later in the spring. Line 1430-160, that's the salaries for the clerical assistants. So remember, the HR department has a 1.5 FTE budgeted for that. So this line actually covers that 1.5. The other 0.5 is shared with technology, and we are hoping to have that filled this year if possible. And so you'll see that increase there from year to year. Line 1430-200 is our equipment line. You're actually going to see a decrease here. We don't really purchase much equipment. We're pretty stacked in our office. The only thing we possibly would need is a file cabinet. So those aren't as expensive as you would expect. So you see a decrease here in that item. In 143400 contractual expenses, this is actually going to remain flat from this year to next year. That's really the professional memberships I hold, any professional development or conferences I may attend. It also includes any recruitment or hiring advertisements that we may do. You will see that the number this year is a lot higher than what we had anticipated it being this year, and that was because we tried to do a big recruitment effort for the retirements that we had, especially in the certification areas that are a little bit more specific. So we tried to be a little bit aggressive there. I'm not anticipating that that is going to be a practice on a year-to-year basis, so that's why it's sort of held flat there. And then the last line item you'll see is 143450. Again, this is held flat, and this is just basically office supplies and postage. So there's nothing really magical in this part of the budget. What you don't see here, but what Mr. Sabalos did allude to when he presented his budget, is that we are looking at adding some HR efficiency software. So currently we work with Frontline Education, and they have different modules that you can purchase. We currently hold the absence management system, which is where we hold all the attendance for our teachers, our administrators, our teaching assistants, our clerical, and that really helps us to maintain our staff attendance. We also have the professional growth module, which is where we have all our evaluations posted in there, as well as if teachers take workshops or conferences or go and do extra coursework. What we'd like to do is add 3 more modules to that. And this is because when you think about hiring an employee, it starts with the actual posting. And so Frontline has a module called Recruiting and Hiring, which starts right at the minute you post for a position. People will apply, you start to recruit through them, and it begins as applicant tracking. So the data that goes in is then filtered, so that now you hire somebody, and it goes into the second module that's called Frontline Central. And what happens is then it starts to create a workflow. So now you're onboarding an employee. All the documents are digital. The employee can do the documents, and then there becomes a workflow so that the documents are then sent to the departments that need them to move forward. What is happening now is everything is done on paper. So an employee comes in, we sit with them, we complete all the onboarding paperwork. Once everything is filled, then we connect to the next department. They do their part, then they collect to the next department. So it's a very slow, inefficient way to do it. We get it done, but this would really allow the data and information to onboard people faster. It also provides employees with the proactive way to also then complete forms on their own once they are hired. So for example, an employee may need to go on an FMLA leave. They would be able to access the FMLA paperwork. It would pre-populate with the information we already have in the system, which again would create an efficiency and a better tracking of some of the processes that we do. And then the last piece of it is they have an analytics module, and the analytics module will take any of the modules that you are currently using, the data from them, and then you can pull data from the different modules and use it to actually compare the data and make better decisions. So it will really increase our ability to use data and to access data quickly by taking all of those modules and putting it together. The most important piece of it, though, is once you recruit through the posting and using all of these modules, you're actually tracking an employee's journey throughout your organization from the moment they start to the moment that they retire. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background because you did see that number at Mr. Sabalos's technology budget is something we're super excited about because I do think it'll create a lot of efficiencies, but also give us some quick data we need. So any questions for me?
Fully supportive of anything that improves HR performance and services, because I do believe it will serve. It's going to save a lot in terms of efficiency, in terms of what you will be able to accomplish, given the help of the technology. So.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I will add that that'll also help our payroll group as well, obviously, with the onboarding. So we're pretty excited about it, too. The record keeping, accuracy, lots of different things. So,
It's night and day.
yeah.
I was just going to say, it'll transform, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. Next, we're on page B1, B3. And this is, we're going to finish off with the business office, some legal, and then transportation, benefits, and debt service. As Dr. Fitzgerald just shared, that top line is in budget, the 150 is my salary. Again, that's my current salary, doesn't take into consideration anything moving forward. That's certainly at the board's discretion moving, there's nothing included in there. Next in line is our clerical salaries. Following that is our contractual expenses related to the ACA compliance, postage, bid fees for advertisements and the likes, conferences, memberships, et cetera. And then $12,000 for supplies, office supplies, paper, check stock, and the last one is our contractual expense for our auditors. So we have external auditors, we have internal auditors, we have claim service auditors, our financial advisors, and fixed asset management fee. So there's just a number of regulatory items that we maintain, and that they fall under this particular contracted services expense line. If we go to B4, we were just looking at B4 with Dr. Fitzgerald. The top line, though, is related to another contractual expense related to legal. This is predominantly our retainer with the district's legal counsel, plus a little bit of expenses above and beyond that retainer. So as you see, it can vary a little bit. And then on the bottom line, we have the salary related to our public information officer. If we go to page B8, again, we have some unallocated expenses. You see that top line is insurance. So as you see, I think what we've all experienced in our private lives, we've kind of seen a little bit here in insurance as well. We've got a little bit of a double bump in this one. We were a little bit short this year with insurance, and next year we're expecting a 12% increase year over year. So that's what explains that increase over the 2-year period. Second to that, we have some school association dues. Primarily, that's covered in the curriculum and instruction area, again, related to memberships for New York State, National School Board Association, and different other associations, honor societies, and alike. We have judgments and claims. You'll see that's budgeted at $1,000. I think everything falls apart if we don't approve that, so we'll make sure we keep that in the budget. But again, that could be for any small claims not covered in insurance. If we have, in all seriousness, if we have somebody's personal property damaged at work, and by their labor unit contract, we may have to make restitution up to a certain amount. So that's what that line is used for. The next line is for assessments for sewer taxes. That's just based on our expenses. The next one is refund real property taxes. That's for tax certiorari claims. There's nothing there this year because we haven't had anything yet this year. We don't budget anything there because we have the reserve, though, so when those are settled, we will eventually move those monies in from the tax certiorari reserve. And the last item is the BOCES administrative charge. And again, that's the kind of, we'll call that the membership fee for BOCES. That's part of our cost of being a component district of BOCES. And if we were looking that tab, that makes up that first section of it. I was going to just bounce to it. That's part of that administrative charge. It includes some of those. BOCES has some expenses related to whether it's employees, for OPEB expenses, their rent, different overhead, things like that. So that's related. That's our portion of our expense, and that's prorated out to all other school districts. So that's page B8.
Jim, I have just a quick question about the insurance and sort of that increase.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what the, process is around competitive bids or how it works for you, when you think about,
Sure.
just the trends versus, that.
It's an interesting market to be in, specifically for schools, and because of that, in the 80s, a bunch of schools created a consortium called NYSER, New York State Insurance Reciprocal. So we work with NYSER, and they work on our behalf, and they go out and they shop that insurance every year for us. And they're able to shop that insurance for school districts, because again, what we're looking for is a little bit more unique than what, say, a business or a household is looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've had pretty good experience, I have to be honest, so this is obviously disappointing. It's kind of where we are. Although Mr. Condon was speaking earlier, some of the other benefits we get from NYSER, they do help with our asset tagging. They give us kind of every 5 years, they do an inventory for us. And then they also provide regular training for us. They make it available for regular training for custodial group, how to lift, how not to mix chemicals, things like that for good workplace safety. So we try to take advantage of those items as well.
Thank you.
If we could go next to C25. It's like tab 4. And these are the expenses related to our monitors. We have the top line, we have monitor salaries. You see we spoke a little bit earlier at a prior meeting how one position changed from a 1.0 FTE, and it was a reduction, but we held those hours, those hours remained, but on an hourly basis. So that's why you see that drop on the salary line. Then we also have the expenses related to hourly monitors, and then our contractual expenses related to contracted security guards. So, as we look at this, this year, our estimated expenditures for contracted expenses, we'd certainly see to be a little bit higher right now, based on what we experienced from January moving forward. When we put this together, we're working in December time period, so that's why it's lower at this point in time. But we're working back and forth, so if there's surplus monies in the hourly line, it can flow down to contractual. If there's surplus in contractual, it can flow up to hourly. Well, that's when you may see a budget transfer from put before the board.
So this is, how many monitors? We have 24? Is that what this says?
Yeah, the budget reflects the equivalent of 24.
Of 24.
Yeah.
And how many are, hourly on staff, and how many are employed? I don't know if you could do it that way,
Yeah,
because it depends on
So,
when
the
you contract.
24, the assumption for the 24 is that they are hourly workers. They don't receive health benefits, so it's an hourly position. And you work, I think it's a 7.5 hour day, depending on where they are.
Yeah.
So that includes your monitors, your safety monitors, the front door of the elementary schools, certainly the 3 here at this location, 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and then your hallway monitors.
Mm-hmm.
And then also your monitors that would be in the cafeterias as well, in the cafeteria here.
Jim, the cafeterias would be often shorter schedule, correct?
They can be on a shorter
They can be on a
schedule,
shorter.
so some people on the cafeteria may just do just the lunch hours, say 10:15 to 2:15.
And then and the special education monitors.
So special education monitors are not, do not fall
They're
under
not
this,
here.
this particular budget category. They fall under the special education
Yep.
area. Civil service-wise, they fall under the same job title, but for budgetary reasons, they're kept in two separate buckets. Okay, if there's no questions here, we can go to page D1. Transportation. So the top line is salaries. There's a person in our business office, half of their salary is allocated towards transportation. That's the top line that you see there. Then we have some contractual expenses mainly related to advertising. We place an ad in the paper every year related to signing up for out-of-district busing. Next, you see the $390,000. That reflects transportation for field trips and athletic events, primarily athletic events. Going down, some supplies and materials. Services from BOCES, because we participate in a consortium with BOCES, we do incur a fee to that. There's a coordinator at that level who really deals day in and day out with the bus company and coordinates between with all the districts as well. And then we have contract transportation. That is a transportation expense related for yellow buses that transport our in and out of district special education students, our private school students out of district, and our occupational education students to and from their occupational education program during the day. So that's what makes up that number. And the number beneath that is the expected annual expenses for public transportation, for students, for Pelham students attending private school out of Pelham. Board policy, first priority is to see if the students can be transported on public transportation. When they can, we provide bus and/or train passes. So this is the expense related to that.
Jim, we continue to see an increase on that. Is it based upon more students seeking services or, going outside of the district? Or is it because of an increase in just the transportation cost?
I could take a closer look. I think we've seen some increase in transportation costs, but there can also be an expense if they're getting a train and a bus, especially in Westchester, there can be a little bit more of an expense. So it depends on the type of transportation for each student. If it's just a train pass or something, that's usually pretty straightforward, but sometimes it can be that combination. I'd have to look a little bit deeper, though. And this is also an area of contingency. I'm sorry, I see that in the bold there, too. So that may explain some of that increase there. Just on the bottom there, I think it's just important to also note, so, the district does receive New York State transportation aid based on qualified transportation expenditures. So last year, that ratio was about 46%. It's kind of like that expense-driven aid that we talk about. You pay the money the first year and you see it in the second year. And when we first launched the budget this year, we showed that we did see an increase in our transportation aid, and that's related to the expenses, the qualified expenses that we've incurred here. So I wanted to make sure to kind of point that out and tie that back to our meeting from one of our earlier budget meetings. If we move forward, there's some backup to here for transportation and kind of how the buildup to the budget was made. If you look, we have kind of this year what it looks like. Our students that are transported through the BEPT consortium to different schools, the number of students, and then the cost that we've incurred, and then what we budgeted for the upcoming year. Again, as we looked at this for upcoming year, we looked at our December bill. So if a student didn't ride the bus that December, they're not going to be here. Doesn't mean they're not going to get a bus. If the parents submitted their application, they're going to get a bus, because I was made aware of one that wasn't here. But that's the purpose of why that would happen. Every year we just pick our December census, and that's kind of that's what we work with. Now that we have the April 1st deadline has come forward, we'll have an updated number for the board for the final budget action. So we'll be able to update that number, and the final budget book will reflect what those requests are. If you go to the following page, you can see the students that are transported via public transportation. Again, I think as you look at it, the numbers haven't changed much. We've assumed 4 contingent positions in the 25-26 versus 2. It's a much lower dollar value, I'm sure, as you can see, public transportation versus the yellow bus. If you'd like to move forward to tab 3, employee benefits on D5. These are some larger numbers here, and these are the some benefits, salaries and benefits numbers. And again, when we put these numbers together, we work on a database and we work employee by employee, and then we look at every employee. We look at what their benefit election is, and based on that, we determine what the employee cost is for the year in building the budget. So, if you have somebody who is eligible for benefits, but waives them, they may receive a waiver or a buyout for that. Or if somebody receives a family plan, whatever the net cost is to the district is for that family plan, we assign that cost. So we do that employee by employee when we build up the census every year. So the top line as you look here is for the state retirement. There are 2 state retirement plans. The New York State, the ERS plan, which is the retirement plan that's for our non-teaching staff, predominantly our clerical staff and our custodial staff. And as you look on the right here, you'll see some detail. So the district is assigned a contribution rate by the retirement system. So the employees are enrolled in this pension plan. And as you look at this, for every dollar they earn, the district is required to make a contribution to the pension plan of 16.5%. And that number changes year to year. If you see the prior year, it was 15.2%, so it's about an 8.5% increase year over year. And that number is based on the valuation of that pension fund every year. And the pension, this actually pension fund, I believe, is solely managed by the Office of the State Comptroller, and they assign that fee every year. And this is what all districts and public entities pay. So as you see, there's about a 13.6% year-to-year increase. And you're going to say, wait a minute, you said it was 8.5% increase, and this is 13.6. We had a little bit of that double bump when we talked about the salary increase year to year. And of course, your employee census is a little bit different too, so there's going to be some variations. But I just figured I'd point out the obvious, and I'm sure that was the question you had. If you go down to the next one, you have the teacher's retirement. So the other pension system is the teacher's retirement system. Again, this is managed by a different group up at the state. But again, they assigned a contribution rate. As you see, that decreased 5.1% year to year. But it's certainly a much larger contribution by the district. It makes sense because most of our employees are teachers. Again, as you look at this, you may say, well, wait a minute, again, it went down 5.1%. There's only about a 1% decrease year over year. Just to kind of explain that, last year we had it's an area of contingency that we have there. And then we also have the actualization of people retiring and the replacement of those people being brought in at lower salary bases. So there's that impact as well. The next line is Social Security, and the employee share is 6.2% of Social Security, and for Medicare. And again, another area of contingency. Like every organization, we participate in workers' compensation. Similar to NYSER, we participate in a consortium with other school districts to self-manage that. And we work really diligently to try to manage that and keep it in line. Unemployment insurance, this is an annual expense. We have had a credit from COVID, as you can see, so that's helped cover some of those prior year expenses. Health insurance, it's the biggest number on this page, just under $12 million. Year to year, the rate increase for our active employees this year was just over 9%, 9.08%. and a little bit over 8% for those retirees that which we provide health insurance. So this is an area I know private sector is facing as well. This is really the second year where we've seen some considerable increases in health insurance. And again, we're looking at that increase, but we see that that budget to budget year to year is minus 132,000. There was some contingent dollars in there prior year, so that's why on the budget to budget look, it doesn't play out kind of and match up what that narrative is. Next is you have your employee benefit fund. So in some of our labor contracts, in lieu of us contracting with, say, an insurance company for dental insurance, we make a contribution to the employees' bargaining group for that, on a per employee basis. So that covers that part of it. We make a contribution to their employee benefit fund. And then the last part is the other employee benefits, whether it's any incentives and alike. So when employees retire, if their contracts provide specific incentives, that's budgeted in this particular line item. If we're okay, we can move forward to pages D9 through D11. Debt service. So picking up on what Mr. Condon shared previously with the rent for the Sanborn building. So there's an accounting pronouncement that requires us to present multi-year leases as capital leases, which is why we find it in this particular category. That top line you see there is the rent for Sanborn, and then the item beneath that is our copier leases. So we follow our copier leases is the second item. Yeah. Further down, we have a transfer to special aid. You see that $40,000. That's the district's share of 20% for our extended school year program over the summer for our special education students. And then that other line that you see there, those other two lines where it says capital improvements, that's our debt service for next year, and that's the scheduled principal and interest payments for the upcoming fiscal year. That also matches, the backup to all of that follows on the pages after this. I know the board's seeing the debt schedules, so. And that's the last page.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. So again, the timeline is there's more budget discussion next week. If any board members have any questions or thoughts or anything else, please, however you'd like to, if you have a question, please reach out. We're happy to answer any question we can. And we're planning a finance committee meeting in the upcoming week as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks, Jackie.
Yes, thank you.
Ellie's putting a coat on and I'm hot.
I know. I'm like, let's sit over here.
I know that there was just a couple items we wanted to do a little follow-up on, just kind of more some context. Maybe one would be starting, Jim put together a graph, which I think speaks to something that, it's in your folders, either your manila or blue folders. Just to kind of get a longitudinal look at staffing. It's kind of a follow-up to some questions from last time. It's in the folder. It's an updated version of something I believe we looked at last year. So we've been looking at this last couple of years, or something with the similar kinds of data. Just so for the boards, in front of who's listening, so the graph really shows our overall FTEs inclusive of all staff over the last 10 years. The blue block at the bottom is that's your general support. So that's administrators, clericals, custodians. I think that's basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So that number you can see, ranged was 44.6 FTEs 2 years ago. Back 10 years ago, we're at 46.4. So a net increase of just under 2. And again, that's administrative, clerical, and custodial. So our custodial staff has not changed in number in
No.
at least the last 8 years.
Right.
So I think that's been steady across. Even though we've grown in facilities, we've maintained the same level of custodial staffing. Administratively, we did reduce an administrative position several years ago. That was the IB supervisor. We added a special education supervisor, so that was just a net swap. And then a few years ago, we did also create an additional cabinet position. So our net gain administratively in the last 8 years has been 1. And then there have been about 2 to 3 clerical positions as well over the last several of years, because as we've grown program and as requirements from the state, business office, registrar, a lot of different, and personnel, that has added just additional workload that is needed to be supported. So again, overall net there, you're less than, it's a very small gain in that general support. The larger gain that you see then is in the instructional. So the top of the bars is the total number. The lower number in yellow, just above the blue blocks, is the instructional staff. So it'd be your teachers, counselors, psychologists, social workers, anything in the teaching ranks. TAs as well, that would be listed there. It's not inclusive of hourly staff. Okay. So I think that's where you see the larger gains. And the black line that goes across is our enrollment, student enrollment, just to get a comparative. So you can see student enrollment, we did climb, a little bit as we went from 2015 up into 2019. The pandemic did drop down a little bit, and then we've seen it's relatively steady, but a little bit of growth going on right now. Actually, a little bit downward trend right now for the last 2 to 3 years. And of course, we have demographic projections, that could extend it further out. What you do see is some of what we talked about over the last couple of years, some growth in staff, instructional staff, and that is, I think, largely associated with our strategic plans and the programs that we've wanted to bring to our students. We did have a little bit of a recalibration of that back in 21-22 school year, about 5 years ago, similar to this year where we had a number of retirements, and we took the opportunity to streamline and sharpen the pencil on staffing at that point in time to make sure, again, that we're thinking about long-term sustainability. And we are doing that again this year as well. So you see the reduction that has been talked about in our budget process there, heading from this year into next. So going from, you do the instructional, 325.12 down to 320.51. So again, it's a culmination of a lot of different positions, but that's, you see the reductions that we've been talking about close to 5 overall. So I'll give you a minute to kind of absorb that.
So just-
Dr. Champ, so from 2015, our student enrollment population to the last school year, this school year, 24-25, we've seen some fluctuations throughout the years, up and down, but we're about 7 students higher within those 10 years. But we have seen an increase in our teachers or any, like, actual curriculum staff, like not versus administrative staff.
Yeah, if you go back to the 2015 year, you've got 298.15 instructional staff.
Yeah.
That's 298 as compared to now 320.5.
So that's the
Instructional.
increase in instructional staff.
That's your main, that right
And
there
the
is your main.
increase in administrative staff has just gone up from
1.
44 to 60.
Administrative is just 1, and the general staff, which is administrative, clerical, and custodial, that's the one that's gone just under 1 net.
Just on the 1 net, yes.
Yep.
So all of our growth, you could say, came from the instructional staff.
Yeah.
So the general support bar here, that is what, just define that one more time, the blue block?
The blue, administrative,
Yeah,
custodial, clerical.
okay, so people not in classrooms.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And just as another way of looking at it is that number, if you look at the percentage of overall headcount for employees, if you look at the percentage of overall employees that are non-classroom, so the general support, it's basically flat. It's actually lower now than it was 10 years ago as a percentage.
Yes, as a percentage, yes.
Yeah, of the total.
You know, another accompanying piece I would share in your folder is, let's see, it's probably the second sheet in your folder. It's the ratio of students to administrative staff. I thought that might be of interest. The smaller the ratio, so the smaller, student to administrative ratio is at the top. And then as the ratio gets larger, so more students to administrative comparison, that's farther down. So you can see, and this was a chart through our school meter that draws just, public information from all different school districts. This grouping was the Southern Westchester BOCES grouping. So of the 33 districts represented, we ranked 28 out of 33 on the administrator to student ratio. So again, the higher the number, the larger the ratio between students and staff. So 28 out of 33 is definitely, I think you would see that reflective of what we believe is a relatively skeletal administrative staff compared to the size of our schools, the number of our students, and the number of programs that we run. And I think these numbers bear that out. In your folders, we did also provide similar reporting for ratio of students to classroom teachers. 29th out of 33, which does mean our classes run larger than you may see at other schools. And again, that's efficient use of staffing and being fiscally responsible with that. Additionally, because some of our growth over the last several years has really come in clinical support, so you also see in there a sheet that represents guidance counselors, school counselors per pupil. We certainly rank a little bit higher there, 20 out of 30. Social workers, 17. There's a smaller group. There's only 22 in that group, but ranked 17 out of those. And then psychologists, 21. So I think you can see where we've invested, especially over the last several years post-pandemic, in a lot of social, emotional, and mental health support, clinical support. You're seeing that is we're ranking a little bit more highly compared to the Southern Westchester schools, yet still below the median in all cases.
What does that mean, that it's only 22 districts versus the 33?
I would take that to mean not all districts have social workers.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they were actually, we
But does
didn't
that
have
not
social
all-
workers until about 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
We hired our first one at, other than Miss Charles at the middle school. She was there originally actually through a grant.
I remember.
Yeah. And when the grant ended, we were able to work out an arrangement to keep her on part-time, and she's been, a wonderful asset all these years.
Dr. Champ, on this chart, when you're looking at total instruction, let's say for 24, 25, or even 25, 26, and you may not have the answer, but is there a general sense of how much of the increase is due to special education versus new programming? Like, do you have a sense?
We'd have to do an analysis of that. I
Yeah, I
know
was
these
just
last several
wondering.
years
Yeah.
that, our budgetary increases have been largely in special education.
Yeah,
We do have the sheets in the book. We could certainly come back at the next meeting with a comparative from 5 years ago, 10 years ago within each department. Because
Yeah.
the business office has maintained similar staffing charts
okay.
over the years. So we can, if
Yeah, I'd be
the board would
curious
like,
to-
we could definitely come back with that next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. This is helpful in understanding over time what staffing has looked like, and as well as administrative support or general support.
All right, any other questions, follow-up, or I guess reactions? That is the end of our line by line, which feels a little anticlimactic. I know it's a lot to take in, but really just other questions, reactions, or, it's like other questions that are still lingering out there that you would like us to address or to do some research on to help inform next
I
steps.
think, I have just a question. I think I know the answer because it doesn't seem too much, but just to check.
Dara, use the microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry, as I just got a tickle in my throat. The instructional increase, which makes sense, you know, regarding what we're hearing in the strategic plan, are we anticipating or are we at capacity with the other support, right? To your point, if you have more staff, does HR, I don't know, just are there other things that you anticipate? It's a small amount, but just checking on sort of that level of staffing. Are we good with the sort of operational or support staff as we're increasing the other staff? Do you see any sort of areas of, you know, deficiencies that might come up if we grow more?
It's always an interesting question. I think what we have, you know, as the program grows, there's more work associated
This-
with it.
yeah,
And I think
that's- I
that
guess
has
that's the
always,
question.
that's been a struggle, I think, for all of us. And I would say even at the building levels as well.
Yep, okay.
You know,
answered it.
I think with more program comes more people, comes more work, whether it's oversight, you know, support, supervision, professional development, or just the, you know, the day-to-day management, business office, all of that. So I would say, I mean, you know, and ideally, I think all departments could benefit from more support.
Yeah.
We try to find, and you know, I think of the new system that Dr. Fitzgerald's bringing in, finding ways to do work more efficiently, I think is what we try to do all the time, because there's never less work.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
trying to find ways to do it more efficiently is what we've been trying to do, because our goal has been to keep the resources in the classroom as much as possible.
No, I
But
I
it's
agree
a
with that. I
lot.
think it's just, yeah, keeping
lot.
an eye on that, because if you grow too much on this side and you don't have the support,
Yeah.
it could be problematic ultimately, right? Like, I mean, this
Yes.
is,
Yes.
it doesn't look like it's huge yet, but that's, okay. That's
Yeah,
just something
you know,
to-
and one of the things, you know, I think about the slide that we had in the budget presentation about future considerations. That's
this
where
is
we
one-
kind
yeah,
of tried
that's
to
great.
put that. You know, I know in working with the administrative team, you know, when we compare ourselves to other districts in the instructional side, there's often a lot more teachers on special assignment that are instructional coaches or instructional staff developers. You know, we have two. When I first started, we had 1.5. We've grown that to 3 now, actually, full-time ELA, full-time math, and full-time instructional technology. But that's an area that, you know, we always talk about, what more
Yeah.
could we do to support teachers, and, you know, to continue to push and support the instructional approaches
Yes.
if we had more support there. You know, I think of our directors. They do K-12 work now, but we don't have department chairs or, you know, like a lead teacher structure. Districts call it different things at the secondary level. So they function, you know, as kind of as like the department chairperson and lead,
Yep.
as well as the director K-12. And there's a lot more, I'll say, technical and operational things that if you had a department chair, they can manage the budget. They can manage
Yeah.
a lot of that day-to-day operational, where the directors could be more, I say, bigger picture, more strategic functioning.
Yep.
But so I think there are places like that, you know, if the budget were ever there,
Yep.
I think we would benefit greatly from being able to invest more in that structure. I do think, you know, clerical structure as well. I think of our custodians, we've expanded buildings, and and facilities and sites,
Yep.
you know, so, and then, you know, I also think about our support staff for, you know, we always talk about like kindergarten and, you know, those areas that if the opportunity ever came, you know, I think we could do some really great things to support the work of the district, but
Okay.
we recognize, you know,
Yeah.
already, you know, how expensive things are. So people do a great job without those,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of work for a lot of people
Yeah,
to
no.
keep the balls in the air.
It is, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, thank you for thinking of that.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's a lot to take in. And what I would say is next week, our next meeting, do we have a meeting next week? We do have a meeting next week. Okay.
I'm just showing everyone that
So-
we're out.
We do not have any additional information for next week.
Except for the next one's a Tuesday. The
Oh,
tw- yeah, the
20.
22nd, so
Wait.
don't show up
The-
on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so we have a meeting the 9th. And then, yes, I think after that, we had to go off cycle because of some of the requirements for
For the
budget
timing,
process.
yeah.
Yeah, so but our meeting next week, we had designated as budget discussion. So I just raised that, so as you think about it, you know, you could be thinking about what are those questions and discussions, because that's where we'll be really looking for final kind of directional guidance, adjustments that you may want to see in the budget. I know Jim's planning a finance committee next week as well, in preparation for that. So any thoughts that, you know, of what you would like to know more about, or changes and adjustments you might like to see, that's what we'll be looking for.
As I shared, if there's any update on the state budget, which has
Yes.
not yet been settled yet, we'd be able to bring that to the board. If any, it was only due yesterday, so
Yep.
you're right.
Yeah, we have time.
If there's any changes in CSE, we certainly work with special education. If there's any changes that would have an impact on the budget, that's another thing that we would make you aware of. And reconciling transportation, just like we shared before, now that the deadline has been yesterday for those to submit for transportation. We'll give it a few days, and then we'll have the most up-to-date numbers for the final budget.
Jim, if there's a change in the state budget, sort of generally, what type of change could that be? Is it just state aid, building aid? Like, what slice of the budget generally affects this?
So in my experience, it's really been your foundation aid, which is the largest part of state aid. And again, in my experience, what I've seen is that it's been, the governor comes in, and it usually ends a little bit higher than what the governor's initial proposal was. So, you know, as we've listened to what's happening at the state level, we haven't heard about education aid being in jeopardy. We hear them talking about a lot of different things. I think they're working on cell phone is one thing that I think they're all working on trying to come to some consensus on. It's a big item. And there's some other items outside of education that the legislature is working on. But again, I listen for those words, you know, if anything would put education funding in jeopardy. I've not heard anything at this point in time. I mean, again, but those are the types of things. Yeah, I'm knocking on wood too. Thank you. But those are the types of things that we would what we would expect. But we just don't know the level or to what degree.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We can move to Board of Education committee reports. Do we have any committee meetings?
Policy we will get to. I know
Yes,
it's
we'll get
actually
to
second
policy.
readings, so I don't think we have. I think we've been busy with other things.
Yes,
Yeah,
we will in the coming week. have it.
next week,
We've
yeah.
got facilities,
the
we've got
advocacy one
finance,
next
we'll have
week.
another
Yeah.
policy before the
Yeah.
end of the month.
So we'll have a lot to report.
Yeah.
Next time.
Okay.
All right. Then let's move to 4.3, but Claire's not here, so.
Yes, I'm sorry, and I was not able to get any updates from her before,
Yeah, okay, wonderful.
before today.
Okay, no problem. We'll move to 4.4, Assistant Superintendent's update on belonging and wellness. Tracy.
Hi, thank you. I'll keep it brief. I know it's late, but we haven't had board reports in a couple weeks, so just a few things I do want to
Great.
highlight. Our ICT coaching is winding down for the year. Secondary was completed at the end of February. Elementary has just a couple of more coaching sessions, so that will be finishing up. I also did want to mention, it was last month, but we were talking about staffing, and March, the first week of March was National School Social Worker Month, so I just really wanted to make sure that I acknowledge the work of our secondary social workers, Ms. Zahed, Ms. Schneider, and Ms. Charles. They provide a lot of support to the families that they work with, to the school teams. It's quite busy, supporting students social, emotionally, and for the academic growth. So I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge them. Also, in March, we completed the Student Resilience Survey. That's something we do in conjunction with Pelham Together. We do that every other year. That's a survey that's completed in grades 8, 10, and 12. We did that on Tuesday, March 11th in social studies classes, and Dr. Champ, myself, and Laura Caruso from Pelham together, have a meeting set up, I think at the end of, or sometime in April, to review the results of the data, and we'll be able to share more with the board on that. I also wanted to mention, last month was Developmental Disabilities Month, so I think it's important to highlight and acknowledge that. And I also wanted to mention, actually today is World Autism Day. So, and the theme this year is advancing neurodiversity and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think the theme highlights the sort of the intersection of neurodiversity and global sustainability when you think about planning, when we talk about playgrounds and off-ramps and things like that. And in general, April is World Autism Acceptance Month, so important to talk about that. That theme is celebrating differences, and it just promotes recognizing and celebrating the unique qualities and differences that autistic individuals bring to the world, and also the idea of promoting inclusion and support and acceptance. So I think it was important to highlight those things. In terms of special education, we are in the middle of what I lovingly call my tax season, which is annual review season. It's a very busy time. We're sort of in the throes of it. We start after February break and pretty much go almost through the start of June. You know, a huge thank you to my staff, especially Ms. Maselli, who just schedules meeting paperwork. It's a lot to manage, so I want to thank her for that. I also wanted to talk about, we didn't talk too much about Superintendent Conference Day, but there was a lot of professional development sessions that went on that day in relation to training faculty for 504. Our consultant came in, met with all middle school teachers, high school teachers, and our nurses. So that went on, and a couple of a good additional professional development sessions that went on that day. Also, in terms of our counseling department, Mr. Farrell and his staff have been very busy with the course requests that were all finalized and went home, so I know they're putting that all in. That information is critical as we've talked about staffing and building the schedule for next year in the middle school and high school. So they've been very busy following up on that. In addition, I wanted to mention as well, they have been continuing the collaboration with civics on the career seminars. In February, they had a career seminar regarding education. Just this past month in March, it was careers in health. And coming up in May, it's going to be careers involved in foreign service and national security. So lots of good opportunities there. And I believe, oh, and then just in nursing, we were also busy last month. March was National Nutrition Month. So I worked with the nurses to put up some information. They gave information to the principals to send out in their newsletters. They put up information in their offices, and I also worked with Mr. Ricky and Whitson's to make sure that there were things promoting Nutrition Month in our cafeterias. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next we have 4.5, Executive Director's Update on Human Resources and Leadership.
So March has been a very busy month, so I'm thankful for April. But I would be remiss not to mention two new retirements that actually came forth in March. So Mr. Victor Torres, who is our maintenance mechanic, who has been with us since August of 1995, he's really been the cornerstone of the Pelham Public Schools, and an impressive 30 years here with us. He is dedicated and hardworking individual, and we extend our deepest gratitude because he is planning to retire in August of 2025. The other retirement to announce is Ms. Pasqua Perino, who is a vital part of the Hutchinson School, and I can attest to that when she has been on the team since June of 2010. She's been here for 15 years, serving as the secretary of the principal. She is the heartbeat of that school. And we are really thankful for her service and the smooth operation she has provided and the efficiency she's provided in the Hutchinson School, and she will also be retiring in August of 2025. So those are two big retirements for our district, but also ones to celebrate because they have given so much time and talent to our district, and we're sad to see them go, but I think they're looking forward to their next journey. The other thing to mention is that the Lower Hudson Council of School Personnel Administrators, which I'm a member, this past Saturday hosted a virtual job fair. So Pelham had 45 potential candidates that we met with. We screened them. They were 10-minute screening virtual interviews. A tremendous thanks to Dr. Thompson, Mr. Lau, Ms. Sabia, Mr. Sabalas, Ms. Keene-Thompson, and of course, Ms. Holtz for helping me pull this off. So I was your switchboard operator as candidates came in. I threw them into breakout rooms with our different administrators, and we really did get some viable candidates out of there. So what happened early this week was all of our viable candidates, we sent their resumes and information out to the hiring committees that are already in process. So we're looking to see the benefits of that, but it was a great event. It was a 9-to-1 quick event, but and it was really one that one person couldn't do on their own. So without the team behind me, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So I am incredibly thankful for their support. And that's really it for my reports.
Quick question,
Thank you.
for what kinds of jobs?
Everything.
Okay.
So what the Lower Hudson Council school administrators did was they put it together based on the postings we had in our OLAS vacancies. And so we had everything from biology, chemistry, special education, childhood education, social studies, ELA, literacy. I mean, it was across the gamut, but we really had some amazing candidates come through there. I think the council did a wonderful job of promoting it and getting word out, so you had candidates coming from all over. And and talking to some of the candidates around 12:30, they were kind of exhausted because they were on this 10-minute roller coaster going in and out of interviews and talking with different districts. But I think it also allowed candidates to see the variety that we have here in Westchester.
Great.
Thank you. Next, we have Assistant Superintendent's update on facilities and sustainable learning environments.
I have to say, I'm kind of out of material.
I was going to say, what is he?
The grass is growing, spring is coming, so sports have started again, which is wonderful. What else do I have here? We had our budget meetings. The state budget remains incomplete. We've got committee meetings coming up. We're going to do a finance committee within the next week. Bond steering will be following next week, and then we're working on scheduling a safety meeting for after the spring break. So I'll be holding all those meetings in the April timeframe. Tracy mentioned World Autism Day. Now I know why my wife wore a blue shirt this morning when she went to work, so it's good to know that. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah. And I have to echo Dr. Fitzgerald's comments, certainly about Pascal Perino and Victor Torres, and congratulating them on their well-earned retirements. Certainly have most experience working with Victor. The phone always will be answered when you call Victor. He's reliable that way, and he's always got a great way about himself. We're certainly going to miss him, but we're also a little jealous, and we're really excited for him and his family to move on to their next journey. And again, if there's any questions or thoughts or comments or anything else on the budget in the upcoming week, please reach out. I'm happy to meet with you on the phone, virtually, whatever works for you guys. Really, I'll extend that, before work, after work, whatever works best for the boards.
Thank you.
Thank you.